Hey everybody, it's Thursday, January 29th, 2026. I'm here to talk today about extended time accommodations on standardized tests. This is, first of all, a very controversial issue. If you have extended time, you probably feel strongly that you deserve it. If you don't have extended time, there's a good chance you might feel like the odds are stacked against you, like it's unfair, that a lot of test takers have 50%, even 100% extended time, aka double time, when they're taking the same exam as you. First of all, a little history. There is a thing called the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which states very clearly that those who are given accommodations for disabilities cannot be called out specifically for having those accommodations. The LSAC got in trouble, was successfully sued years ago, in fact, for indicating which students had extended time accommodations on their score reports. That's obviously a big no-no. If you say that a student had double time, then certainly a school is going to take that into account and perhaps judge them for that when evaluating their scores, right? So once that lawsuit was settled, ironically, it ended up becoming true that the LSAT of all tests became the easiest test to gain accommodations for. There are no official numbers to go off of, but the information that's been released so far seems to suggest that 10 to 12% of students who are taking the LSAT have extended time accommodations of some sort. What does this mean for the average test taker who does not have accommodations? Well, it does mean that the odds are stacked against you. In the old days, when I took the LSAT in the early 2000s, maybe 1%, if less than that, of students had accommodations. So to crack the top 10%, the top 5%, the top 1% of scorers was still difficult, of course, still a lot of competition. But it wasn't unreasonable because you weren't working, you were competing against students who had a fundamental advantage over you. Now, as to whether that advantage is needed or deserved, I leave that up to the doctors and the psychologists and the psychometricians at the various, exam boards, LSAC, GMAT, ETS, etc., College Board, ACT. If you have accommodations, I'm happy to tutor you. I will not judge you, I promise. Many of my students do have extended time accommodations. But one of the first things I see happen when a student is approved for accommodations, to state the obvious, is the score goes up. Objectively speaking, anyone who has more time on a test is going to perform better. So it's no surprise that in certain circles, if you have access to the right doctors, you might be able to abuse the system and receive those accommodations when in fact you don't really need them. You just want to get a higher score. Is that the reality of testing in 2026? Yeah, you better believe it. We live in an unfair world, and testing is no exception. But it's important to be aware of that. I think when you're struggling, to crack, 165, 170, what have you, it's important to remember for most of us that, we are taking the regular time test, and that's going to make it more difficult. For those of you who have extended time, please, I hope you didn't take offense from this post. I do not mean any of it. Although I'm not sure what LSAC's, metrics for qualifying are, I'm sure they do have a specific process that they make you go through. And I do trust that, the majority of students, at the very least, who have extended time accommodations do deserve it. But you can't tell me that there aren't some people who are going to abuse the system. And I think that number has increased. That's part of the reason why the test has become more competitive over the years. Another reason would be internationalization. The fact that the LSAT, among other exams, GRE, GMAT, is no longer a domestic test. It's more an international test. And so you're competing with the best of the best from all across the world, not just from the USA. These are relevant considerations. So anyway, That's all for today. I guess the main takeaway is, hey, if you have extended time, then great. If you don't, then don't be so hard on yourself, right? Keep in mind that in many cases, over 10% of test takers have more time than you. Sometimes they have 50% more time. Sometimes they have double time, 100% more time than you. That can help you be a little bit easier on yourself, especially in the early stages of prep, when it can be a bit of a slog. So any questions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed the chat. Next time we're going to talk about LSAT assumptions. That should be an interesting one. But for now, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, have a great day. Bye.